Hey everybody, it's ShadowStar here for another Doctor Who review. This time it's Dot and Bubble, an episode with an absolutely annoying cast, only this time it's intentional, because let's face it, the cast members in this episode are some of the worst. And it's another Dr. Light episode. We've had two Dr. Light episodes back to back in a season of only 8 episodes. In other words, a quarter of the season is Dr. Light episodes. Please don't think too hard about that. Well, at least it's over now, but still. It's not as bad as Space Babies, but this episode was annoying. The difference is, you're supposed to find the characters annoying. The main character is the most annoying person you'll ever meet. You know, at first you think, oh, it's just an episode about obnoxious little young people with their annoying personalities, and it kind of is. But it's also an episode about being literally in a bubble. It's an episode about, being in a social media bubble. Get it? Get it? It's a double entendre. It's an episode about racism. It is. And that's what I find interesting is, unlike other episodes which have dealt with racism, this is one where you go into it and you don't know it's going to be about racism. And to be honest, you might not even notice it until the very, very end, or even not at all. Some people might take her actions or words as just her being a stuck-up little bitch, and she is. But then you notice it has a lot of underlying tones, especially the very end. She's way more hostile to the Doctor than she is to Ruby. She's a little annoyed at first about Ruby, but then she quickly warms up to Ruby. But she absolutely never warms up to the Doctor. She's just going along with whatever will keep her alive. You start to get hints that she's got some problems and she's a sociopath, but the final nail in the coffin is when she throws Ricky September under the bridge and says, right, kill him instead. That's that moment when you go, oh, she's actually a piece of shit. And you realise, oh, we don't actually care about these people. But obviously, the Doctor still wants to save them and get them out of there. Because let's face it, they're not going to survive. They go off on their own into the forest and, they're not going to survive. Those people, these group of people who have never worked a day in their life, that's not surviving. And also, there's only 20 of them. So, there's literally no genetic diversity between their group whatsoever. I also like that there's a little something Russell T Davies said, where he said, see how long it takes you to realise nobody in this episode, other than the Doctor, is not white. Every character is. And I guess we can finally say we've found out what future society Krasko from the episode Rosa lives in, because, yeah, we finally figured out where space racism is from. So, yeah. But the episode itself, I was just kind of going through the motions. Annoying characters, wondering what's going on. There's slug people. They're eating people. I guess, hey, we finally have an episode about Eat the Rich because it's their obnoxious rich young people who have been sent away from home and their home is destroyed. Then otherwise, that's it. At least this is the first episode where they acknowledge the recurring actress, Susan Twist. She had a slight acknowledgement in the last episode, but here both the Doctor and Ruby have acknowledged her. We have only 3 episodes left, so let's see how they wrap that up. I honestly don't know. How's that going to factor into anything? But yeah. But otherwise, it's just, going through the motions, and there's no characters who are likable, except maybe Ricky September, and that's the point. And it makes sense that he's more tolerable. Remember, they're sent there because they're obnoxious white people who want to, quote-unquote, preserve the perfect world. He's sent there as entertainment. He's not sent there because he shares their values. He's sent there as entertainment. So it makes sense as he said that, oh, once I've done my entertainment, I just kind of live my life and walk around like a normal frickin' person. But yeah, this episode, it's fascinating though. Obviously I don't love it, but it's fascinating. Last episode was fascinating because of how it befuddled the internet and it was divided. This episode's fascinating because see how long it takes different people to catch on to what the episode's about. see how long it takes people to realize, oh, it's an episode about being in a social media bubble, an episode about being in an echo chamber that leads you to only think a certain way. At first you think, okay, they're obnoxious, but they all seem to be happy and loving life. And from their perspective, they are happy and loving life. Because that's what you've got to remember about racism and other toxic views is the people who do it, you like to think of them as miserable, and some of them are, but they don't go around, but often they're happy little people who just like to shut themselves away from this, exist in their own little world, and not even think about it, which is what they've done. They just exist in their own little world, and everything else that's different they don't even think about. They'll just brush it away, which is what she did. At first she wasn't hostile, she was just, I'm just going to ignore you, which is still technically hostile, but not aggressively hostile. She was never aggressively hostile, she just pushes everything aside. That's what's fascinating about it, The key is to figure out how long into the episode did you figure out what the actual point of the episode is. And beyond that, it makes the episode slightly more interesting on a rewatch, at least a first rewatch. You go into it, because now that you know, you're looking for those little hints that make way more sense on a second watch. And I won't lie, I'll completely admit to myself, even at the very end, I thought it was just about her being a stuck-up bitch. It wasn't until I went on the internet and realized what people were saying, I was like, oh my god, that makes way too much sense. So, yes, I'll expose myself and say, I didn't realize the first time. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, you know what, that makes tons of sense. And yeah, it absolutely is the point of the episode. So yeah, but that's what's fascinating about it. Some people won't notice it. And to be honest, that's akin to real life. Some people won't notice these small little jabs, or these small little brushing people aside, or these little things. Or they'll just think that someone being rude isn't necessarily racism, when it can be. Because to be honest, that's the tricky thing about things like racism. Sometimes, until you see it in massive quantities, you don't always know whether somebody's ignoring or hating somebody for racist reasons, or they just don't like them. Sometimes it's obvious, but only when it happens in massive spades. When it happens in small little bits like this episode, you don't quite realize the true intentions behind it. And that's the thing. It's what's known as, on the internet, as innocently insensitive. These people in the episode, these main characters, they're not aggressive per se. They're not constantly hateful, except maybe one or two really bad lines at the very end. They're just people who are happy, but really, really don't want to think about anything else outside their little bubble. And yeah, the episode is just a double entendre with the word social media bubble. Otherwise, like I said, the episode had some good qualities. We liked the Ricky September character. The slug monsters look cool, because that was an actual build. That wasn't CGI for the most part. The Doctor, I like the Doctor's reaction at the very end, where he's still the Doctor. He still wants to save people. And you can see his frustration go through multiple emotions. First, he laughs it off. He's like, well, fine, that's what you think. That kind of derisive laughter, like, what? Did that really just happen? But also, then he does, I will say, some people are critical of the fact that he keeps crying. Like, I get it, it's nice we have an emotional Doctor, but he cries a little too much. He cries in The Church of Ruby Road, he cries in Boom, and he does it again. It's also interesting, because going into this season, we wondered if we were going to get an episode dealing with racism, because, let's face it, we have an actor who's not white, so we thought, well, we'll probably get that. And I was fine with that. The fascinating part was, we all, or at least I, kind of assumed we'd get an episode in the past. Sort of akin to the Witchfinders from Jodie Whittaker's era, where nobody trusts her because she's a woman. And, I thought we'd go have an episode in the past, and there'd be issues about him not being able to take him seriously because of his skin color. But instead, it's an episode in the future, and we have a future society who's just built up literal walls to keep themselves, There's a lot of little allegories. An episode, and it literally opens with an opening shot of them living under the dome. Now they've gotten outside the dome, and now they've got to survive in a world where A, they can't survive, B, good luck reproducing your entire race, you have no genetic diversity because you're like 20 people. So yeah, the Doctor knows they're doomed to fail, but they're so delusional that they'd rather take that small hope than the easy option of just getting the TARDIS, even if it means going with the Doctor. But yeah, I've rambled on, and to be honest, I rambled on more about the subtext than I have about my actual thoughts. Because, like, okay, actual thoughts when I was first watching the episode, I was like, okay, these characters are obnoxious. I'm just going through the motion. I'm like, what's the point of this episode? Not in a bad way. I'm like, just where is this going type situation. It's like, okay, there's slugs. Are we trying to stop the slugs? And we are trying to stop the slugs. But even then, it's not like the slugs are evil. It's the actual AI behind the dot and bubble system, which is another literal case of the system fighting back. It's like Kablam, but done better, because in Kablam it was a system fighting back against that guy trying to blow everyone up. Here it's a system fighting back, letting the slugs in and letting them eat these obnoxious rich kids, so yeah. But like I said, went into the episodes like, okay, where's this going? Who cares? I'm just waiting to see where it goes. Honestly, as fascinating as the subtext is for this episode, and I'm glad a lot of people are loving it, for me personally, 73 Yards is still the best of the season so far. This one is probably not the worst. Space Beams is still the worst, but it wasn't one where I was having fun the whole ride, and it's also not one where I was enjoying the mystery, so yeah. It was alright. It was alright. Like, there's not been an episode I hate. Okay, Space Babies was close and annoying, but this episode's just kind of alright, but fascinating subtext, and that's what's interesting. Subtext where you didn't expect it at a first glance, and that's what makes it more interesting. Anyway, I've rambled on way too long, or possibly, I don't know, I don't pay attention to how long I'm rambling on. Anyway, we've only 3 episodes left. I'm pretty sure the last 2 episodes are connected, and I think I know, so I think next episode, well, I've seen pictures, I know which one it is, and it'll be interesting. But otherwise, yeah, let's wrap that up. This episode was alright, fascinating subtext, but yeah, that's all it is. Anyway, I will see you next week for more Doctor Who reviews and other things as well. See you next time, guys.